Hello and welcome to the first inaugural episode of Cocktail Party Politics.
I'm your host, Jordan.
And I'm your host, Paulina. Well, let's get started.
Yes, and before we begin, just to give a little bit of background, we are two women living and working in Washington, D.C. And when you join us, we're going to be talking about everything going on inside the Beltway as well as outside. So we're going to get into pop culture and all that good stuff as well.
We can get all of your needs on what's happening, what stories you need to know, and how you can talk about it to impress all your friends.
So let's kick it off with what's kind of going on somewhat in the Beltway, but really in Los Angeles.
The only story anyone really cares about right now, which is the atrocious riots going on in LA, where a lot of people, predominantly illegal immigrants from Mexico, are burning down LA again over ICE coming in to get people who have no business being in our country out of our country.
Exactly. And, our friends in the Democratic Party are trying to tell us that they're peaceful protests, but
they told us about peaceful protests 5 years ago. I think we all remember the fires being set as Minneapolis, a city I have a lot of connection with, being completely destroyed. DC, which is both of our home,
yes,
being brutalized. New York City, Philadelphia. Pretty much name a great city in this country, and it was tortured and torched over the course of months during that so-called Summer of Love. And we're seeing the exact same thing now.
Yes, I think we're on day 4 of the riots in LA?
Give or take.
Yes, and President Trump has sent in thousands of National Guards members and 700 Marines to try to calm down the tensions in LA. And Governor Gavin Newsom is not happy about the steps that President Trump has been taking.
I think Gavin Newsom thinks that this is going to be his moment to really differentiate himself and become the anti-Trump hero for the left with his very demonstrable presidential ambitions for 2028.
I don't think so. They're trying to tell us these are peaceful protests. We all have a brain and a pair of eyes, and we can see that this is not peaceful protests. I think the campaign ads for the Republicans in the midterms and in 2028 are writing themselves right now.
That one image of LA with the smoke in the background and the man in the mask on the bicycle on the motorbike carrying the Mexican flag, I think that's going to win a lot of votes for Republicans. Yeah, no, I don't think Gavin Newsom is successfully going to use this, but I think he's trying to position this as him taking a righteous stand against, to use the left's favorite buzzword, fascism and authoritarianism. He's trying to make it seem like Trump isn't trying to work with him.
Mm-hmm. But he is.
We know that's demonstrably untrue. Recently, Gavin Newsom alleged on X, formerly known as Twitter, that Trump has yet to even call him while sending in the Marines and the National Guard. But what did Trump do to prove that?
He showed the call log to confirm that he did, in fact, call Governor Newsom.
Not only did he call Governor Newsom, he called him twice.
Yes.
And the first time, Gavin didn't even pick up. And the second time, they had a full conversation in which they were obviously unable to reach a conclusion because 2,000 more National Guard members and 700 Marines are being sent to LA to try to quell this violence.
Correct. And, this was just breaking not too long ago. Governor Newsom tried to file went to a court to try to get them to halt Trump's military intervention in LA, and the judge struck it down and said, no, the president can continue with what he's doing.
Well, when foreign nationals are actively engaging in wanton destruction and violence on American soil, that's the exact kind of thing that the National Guard and the military should be called out to do. Businesses are being destroyed. That's putting people's livelihoods at risk. And also, people forget that when you're setting buildings on fire, looting, and engaging in destruction, people can die.
Correct.
There were dozens of deaths across the so-called Summer of Love. Innocent shopkeepers and police officers, people just trying to restore order or live their lives, lost them because of people who are just being violent for no
Exactly.
good reason.
Exactly. And, we know already that some protesters have been arrested, and Tom Homan and the DOJ have made it very clear that anybody that comes after law enforcement is going to face severe consequences, as they should. And anybody that does, they need to be immediately deported and go back to where they came from.
Completely agree. No illegal immigrants at these protests have any right to stay in this country. There's no argument. I also think that there's just a profound amount of hypocrisy.
Yes, they're waving the flags from the countries that they're trying to escape.
While burning the flag
of the USA.
If you're so desperate for asylum from these horrible countries, why are you waving their flags and burning the flags of the country that you claim to want to make your home in? That doesn't seem very asylum-y to me.
No, it doesn't.
Does it seem asylum-y to you, Jordan?
No, not at all.
Not at all. It's completely absurd. And of course, while Republicans and anyone with common sense is reacting to this horrified, there are a lot on the left, particularly politicians, trying desperately to spin this in an anti-Trump bent,
of course,
who are reacting absurdly. Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, described this as one of the biggest things to endanger our democracy. Aside from calling things fascist, as I'm sure you all know, one of the left's new favorite talking points is saying that anything Trump does will endanger our democracy.
And it's so funny that they're saying that because, as we're learning, what they did the past 4 years was really a threat to democracy. Joe Biden was not president. For all we know, it was this team of several high-level bureaucrats running the country. I would consider that a threat to democracy since those people were not elected by a single voter.
Do you know what I would consider a threat to democracy, Jordan?
What?
I would consider a threat to democracy going through a whole primary to elect somebody only to have him drop out after the last primary and have somebody who never won a single state, who not a single voter actually voted on.
Yes, because if you remember, even in 2020, she dropped out even before the 2020 primaries really got off. So she never received a single vote.
Not a single vote. But she was coronated. Like, our authoritarian leaders have decided that this is who should be the Democratic nominee. And the voters responded in kind by saying, no, we want the man who won 3 primaries, who many, many Americans voted for.
Who literally took a bullet for this country.
If you look at the iconography of what the left and the right have to run on, the violence and the powerful images of the right is a man who was shot, who's almost this close to being assassinated, triumphantly raising his fist in the air to show that he will not be beaten.
Yes.
The left's new iconography is someone who has no right to be in this country, waving the flag of another nation while the city he purports to want to be in burns.
Yes.
Gavin Newsom, that is your campaign image.
Yes.
Congratulations. You have earned it.
It's just a shame all those illegals won't be able to vote.
It'll be so bad for the Democrats' numbers as they try to import
their core constituency can't vote, unfortunately.
How tragic.
I know.
Do you think that this will have any impact on California's voting patterns, Jordan?
I would like to think that it would, but, I mean, California is just so...
I'm not optimistic.
I'm not either. California is just so woke. It's so... Honestly, they're another planet at this point. I really don't know.
I don't know. I think anyone sane who could leave Southern California, particularly the LA area, as a conservative did.
They did.
You know, back in 2020 when they saw massive migration out of California into states like Tennessee and Florida with better tax policies, better freedom, which we didn't really appreciate the importance of until we were all locked up during the pandemic. But I think that anyone who had hope for that city and that state, after watching this,
yes,
there's no way I think you can stay in good conscience.
No.
For yourself and your family.
Exactly. I mean, it just, even just thinking about of California. I mean, they were stupid enough to elect Kamala Harris to the Senate. They were stupid enough to elect Gavin Newsom as governor.
Multiple times.
Yes, and Karen Bass as mayor.
Honestly, I feel bad for the residents of LA, but also, I mean, they voted for this.
They
This
did.
is what they chose to do. These are the Gavin Newsom had a recall election.
Mm-hmm.
You could have gotten out of this. You could have gotten rid of a man. Now let's go a little deeper into some of Gavin Newsom's many, many scandals and issues. I mean, this is a man who allowed San Francisco, one of the great cities in this country. It is so charming.
Yes.
Its history and its culture and its cable cars. And it is truly one of the most beautiful, great cities of our country. He let it fall into complete disrepair.
Yes.
Do you remember when he finally decided to clean it up, Jordan?
No, you have to jog my memory. When was that?
He was getting a visit from a certain state leader. Certain communist state leader. Xi Jinping was enough to make him
clean up his state.
But not the good Americans who live in San Francisco.
No, I mean, and he did a terrible job with the fires that happened earlier this year.
It was so tragic.
Yes.
So many people were losing their homes. It was the most expensive natural disaster in a long time.
And let's not forget, during COVID, he tried to tell all of his constituents they got to stay home, wear a mask, and what was he doing?
Eating at French Laundry.
Yes.
For those of you who either don't know or forgot, this is an incredibly lovely, incredibly fancy restaurant with an exceptional tasting menu in California. And he let that restaurant open for him and his friends while, hardworking restaurateurs were forced to shutter their restaurants because the governor didn't feel like hosting a dinner party there. And none of the rest of us were allowed to leave, of course.
Yes, and not for nothing, his wife was out spotted shopping today while LA is burning to the ground. So she's out shopping, everything is fine.
As Mrs. Newsom would say, let them eat cake.
Yep.
This is so profoundly out of touch. The pinnacle of liberal elitism allowing harm to take hold of the good, honest, hardworking people. The business owners whose stores are being looted, whose livelihoods are being threatened, whose safety, the people who are living in these neighborhoods and safety is under attack.
And not to mention law enforcement that's trying to keep this at bay, and, the ICE agents. There's been much to do made about the fact that ICE agents are wearing masks now. It's to avoid them from being harmed by these people that they're trying to, or protesters.
There are calls to attack ICE agents on site. There are calls to figure out who is in ICE so that they can be physically harmed or killed.
Hakeem Jeffries has stood up in front of a podium when he was given a presser, I think he was either last week or a couple days ago, and says, we will unmask who all these ICE agents are. We will find out who they are.
That's a threat.
Yes.
We all know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Hakeem Jeffries is just one of many on the left who is catering to people other than the people he swore an oath to protect upon entering Congress. And not only Congress, he's in the leadership. He should be held to an even higher standard, to set an example for other members. But no, he'd rather protect people who are not, covered by the Constitution, rather than people who are.
Yes, and it's the language being spewed by the likes of him and Chuck Schumer and all these other leftists.
Karen Bass.
Yes, that what is happening in our country is happening. That's why these LA riots are happening. They are basically encouraging violence against what is going on in our country right now.
Of course. They are actively allowing and therefore complicit in all of the violence. But that shouldn't surprise anyone because we've seen this story before.
Yes.
We all were watching in 2025 when people like Tim Walz and Kamala Harris were and Gavin Newsom again.
Yes.
Were allowing riots to occur in their cities. The city of Seattle had an occupied zone that only finally got shut down when multiple rapes and multiple murders occurred in it. It was horrific.
Yes.
You cannot have autonomous zones in the middle of cities, but 5 years ago, everyone was so terrified of being perceived as unwoke or
racist or
yes.
Nazi, Hitler, what garbage they've called us.
A lot of people didn't say anything because they were so scared of the ramifications of being called racist, of being considered to be not sufficiently progressive for their jobs, for their schools. So a lot of people stayed silent and watched atrocity after atrocity and horrific actions for months. I don't think we're letting that happen anymore.
No. People have woken up, and they've really, I think the 2024 election was just a game changer in terms of, people became more willing to speak out and say really what they believe and who they support.
Well, I think the 2024 election even more so
was a rejection of this whole woke ideology.
Because we realized these beliefs are popular. A lot of the positions that people were a little cagey and a little reticent to take on are 80-20 issues. Trump won the popular vote along with the Electoral College.
And he won every single swing state. I mean, this was a mandate, and the Democrats like to play it as, well, he only won by 1% of the vote or only 2 million votes. No, this was a mandate. He won the House, he won the Senate, he got more votes than last time he was president. I mean, he didn't win, he won for fun.
And the policies that he really won on, yes, the economy was a disaster under Biden, and Biden really owned it. He put his name on it.
Bidenomics.
But that was a big, I'm not going to discount. The economy matters when people are putting their budgets together and they realize that they're paying more under Biden than they were under Trump, and that Biden's policies seem to make things more and make things worse, and Kamala said she'd be more of the same. Of course, that matters.
But it really was immigration was the number one issue, and President Trump has said it himself. He made that his number one issue because he was out there talking to everyday Americans and understood the effect that this was having on the hardworking Americans in this country, and he wanted to do something about it, and he has.
Immigration hits on so many different quadrants. There is the safety aspect. We're seeing that with these riots. People are less safe when their cities are burning down. You're seeing that with the crime, with some of those tragic deaths, girls like Laken Riley, who should be alive today.
Jocelyn Nungare, Rachel Morin.
These are women whose lives were either completely ended or completely changed and harmed for the worse because of people who should not have been here in the first place. But you also have the economic aspect of it. I mean, these riots are burning down people's businesses and looting harms small businesses. People can say all they want, oh, they're looting major corporations. They're also harming mom and pop shops with razor thin margin, people who are just trying to enrich their communities and support their families.
Yes.
But also, importing cheap labor is not good for Americans.
No, it's not. Not at all. I mean, they're willing to work for a lot less, so that leaves an American jobless for this illegal migrant that's willing to do it.
Which also, if we're talking about compassion, Republicans are accused of not having compassion on the immigration issue. And then those same leftists will turn around and say, oh, so are Americans willing to pick strawberries for $5 an hour?
Or maybe somebody's lawn, or
maybe nobody should be brought into another country to be exploited for cheap labor. Maybe that's a bad thing, actually. And by focusing on it in that way, you're actually admitting that all you want is a cheap, vulnerable, exploitable workforce of people you don't care about.
Correct.
And you don't want to have an actually good life. You want to keep people under your thumb so that they will keep voting for your regressive and wicked policies so that they're controllable and exploitable rather than trying to actually let anyone, legal or illegal, Republican or Democrat, have a chance at a decent life.
Yes, and achieve the American dream.
The American dream is being pushed so far out of reach by some of the policies on the left. And the Trump administration is fighting tooth and nail to bring it back, but it's hard.
Yes.
Though I have to say, there are some good policies being... Have you heard about the baby bonus?
Yes, the MAGA accounts.
The MAGA accounts. You see, as an antidote to this horrifically depressing story, I think we want to talk about something a little bit more fun. President Trump has made a tentpole of his agenda making family formation easier, helping families to flourish and helping Americans. And one of these things is MAGA accounts. Our fiscal expert Jordan, do you want to explain what these are?
Yeah, so basically when a child is born, they will get this quote-unquote MAGA account made in their name, and it'll be a one-time $1,000 contribution from the federal government, and other members of family can contribute to this account as well.
There are corporations that are discussing matching the accounts.
Yes.
Since the accounts are going to be invested, the corporations are hoping to make money off of some of the interest, along with having the PR win of saying that they're going to add money to the accounts of American babies, which I think pretty much everyone, so long as they're born, is in favor of. We all know the Democrats' opinions of babies. But
yes, but Trump is really trying to not only lift up the American family, but the American working class, and that's why you're seeing in his landmark One Big Beautiful Bill that's currently making its way through Congress, eliminating tax on tips, eliminating tax on overtime pay, eliminating tax on interest on car loans, creating a new standard deduction for seniors, which, all these things to try to lift up the American middle class that has been so forgotten by the left and abandoned by them.
And here's a controversial policy that has been in the news a lot in the Big Beautiful Bill that is actively spectacular for the working middle class, which is getting rid of the EV tax credits. The electric vehicle tax credits are, frankly, absurd. With the limited grid that we have for charging electric vehicles and with the astronomical price point that they currently are at, electric vehicles are pretty much the domain of the wealthy at this point. So these tax credits are having working middle class people subsidizing cars, so buying cars, frankly, for the wealthy, which is a little bit of an absurd policy for Democrats to be pushing.
Yes. But, it's really interesting to see. The Democrats have become the party of the elites and the wealthy, and the Republican Party is truly the party of the working class. It's been a complete realignment, I would say, over the last decade, because, I think early 2000s, 90s, the Republicans were seen as the elites, and it's been a complete 180, I think, on that.
Well, I'd say that the Republicans really are the party of everybody. Because
common sense, working class. I think I said this, I've said this before. The coalition that President Trump has built, it's something we've never seen before. It is people, every shade, every stripe. It's just a broad coalition, and he, I think, is just this unique figure that has just brought so many people together around this idea of common sense, prosperity. People want to just be able to live their lives, enjoy their wealth, and, be left alone.
I know it's been said before, but the fact that the president of the Teamsters Union spoke at the Republican National Convention is showing...
And they did not come out and endorse the Democratic candidate, which they have done.
This is just showing the shift that Trump's coalition has had. He is maintaining some of the typical conservative focus on the economy, but rather than exclusively focusing on things like markets like GDP and the stock market, which, well, he does care about, not in its day-to-day, or else I think his tariff policy would have been a little different.
Yeah.
He's caring about it more in a way that will allow all Americans to thrive.
Yes, and he's, looking in the long term of what's going to be what he's doing right now. Maybe there'll be some short-term pain, but what's it going to look like in 10 years? And I think, it's a complete realignment.
And we do need some long-term thinking in Washington. So much of policy going back, goodness knows how long, has been all about the short-term wins, which makes sense. Congress makes most of the laws, and their elected officials, they can only think on either a 2 or a 6 year timeline.
Yes.
When they're facing re-election, they're not going to think, how is this, most people aren't thinking, how is this policy going to affect me 10 years from now? They're thinking, what has the Romans ever done for me lately?
Yes, correct.
But because President Trump is in a second term, and
he cannot run again,
he did not endorse any policies that would allow him to run again.
Yeah.
He will not have J.D. Vance run with him as vice president and immediately step down.
Yeah.
he's in a very rare opportunity to actually create a true legacy
Mm-hmm.
beyond the short term. And we really need more of that.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the inaugural episode of Cocktail Party Politics.
Come back next week so we can fill you in on everything that's happened.
Inside the Beltway and outside.
Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again soon. Have a wonderful evening or morning or whatever time you happen to be tuning in.
Yes, and we will catch you next time.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.